Howdy, howdy. Sudevil here, and welcome to my first in-depth analysis of formations, and hopefully the first in a series of formation testing where we're going to go a little deeper, try and dig into the data and see if we can find some good information. During this test, thankfully, I had Soulhammer helping me test, which made things go very, very well. He's another dwarf just like me. We'd both be nerds for dwarfs if there was such a thing, or like having fun testing and thinking of other tests we can do. But really, I want to do a comprehensive test with formations to see how changing the basic formation of your units can alter an event. So the first set of formation testing I did was basically took 7 Dwarf Warriors versus 7 Hammers. Now I did want to use non-Dowie Infantry. I wanted to use High Elves, Swordmasters of Hoeth, but they just don't line up as well. And I wanted to try and make sure they lined up as evenly as possible to make sure the test went off as good as we could get it. So yeah, I don't like dwarf on dwarf violence, but you know, sometimes for the greater good, things must be done. So during the test, I will be letting the hammers charge into my dwarf warriors and then changing the dwarf warriors formations and looking at the battle time and looking at the gold differentials to see if we can see anything in the data. So I know there's lots of people who don't like the data part of it. Go to the end of the video. I'll try and summarize the findings, and I do have some graphs and charts that you can definitely look at and make your own conclusions. Basically, the first test, I'm going to charge the Dwarf Warriors into the hammers. We're going to be three rows wide, and the hammers will always be exactly 3 rows wide for every single test, just to get a baseline, and then we will look at not getting the charge bonus with our Dwarf Warriors and just letting the hammers charge into us and see what happens there. And then we'll start narrowing the formations to see how that changes how long the battle takes. The basics of our goal was to find out if we square up our formations versus a wide formation versus a very narrow formation, if you're in an engagement where you know you're going to lose. I mean, Dwarf Warriors are not going to beat hammers, but you're often in a battle going to be in a situation where you have to take a weak unit like Dwarf Warriors against a stronger unit like Swordmasters of Hoeth or Black Orcs or whatnot, and you just want them to hold as long as they can. That's your only goal, so you can do other things with other units like gyrocopters or cannons or quarters or these types of things. So this is the test. So I'll just show you some of the tests, and then we'll go into the data. And I did also do some quick testing with Longbeards to make sure that we have some context for this information. So without further ado, I'll just put it in fast forward, and you can see this battle really doesn't take long. The hammers basically engage and all the Dwarf Warriors are done, just like that. It is a very, very short amount of time. So, and I do have that time on a spreadsheet, so we'll be able to go see it, but very, very quick. Get in there, fight, everyone's done, and we go from there. So we'll go to the next replay, and we'll load the replay, H1, and this will be the Dwarf Warriors just standing still and taking the charge from the hammers as our other baseline in, again, a 3 wide formation. So here we go, and we're just gonna let them charge in. Yeah, we didn't. We'll get it right. We're just playing with getting everything square, and we'll let them charge in. You can see this battle does take quite a bit longer than when we charge in. So it actually, even though you forego your charge bonus, when you have a weaker unit against a stronger unit, so it does take a little bit longer, it might not be a good idea to countercharge. You do get in more damage, but the battle takes a lot longer, and if your goal is to keep that fight going as long as you can, usually a bad idea. Now, we did a test at 4 deep, 5 deep, 6 deep, 7 deep, 8 deep, but I'm not going to show every test. I will just show a couple of tests to show the basics of the formation, and then we'll go onto the spreadsheet and I can show you how the data plotted out. So we'll go there. I'll put this battle. Are you sure? Yes. We'll load the replay. Let's try H9. So here we go, H9. This is a relatively square formation, and you can see I think we did 15 tests with 7 versus 7, so that we could plot out some nice data into so take a look at it. So here we now have kind of a rather square formation, and again, we're just going to let the hammers charge right into us, and you can see some of the effects of this. We'll just slow it down. What starts to happen is these guys charge in, and the charge bonus has already started, and these guys on the edges haven't started fighting. So they don't get as much charge bonus when you're in a narrower formation, and we'll just let this go. And the battle does take quite a bit longer. We'll see exactly how much longer. I mean, we're still going to lose everyone. This is just the way it is. So we'll load the next replay, and we did all the way to, I believe, 13, 12. I think it's this one. So we'll take a look at that. Yeah, so Dwarf Warriors. This is the narrowest formation. Soulhammer has played tabletop. He said this might bring back the dwarf conga line, which was a thing with Slayers in the dwarf tabletop army. But you can see when we're super narrow, the armies will kind of wrap around, and then our armies will engage, and it will take significantly longer. But really, we'll take a look at exactly how much to see if it would ever be worth it. We had a little bit of a goofy thing happen on this test where these guys stayed longer, but that is kind of the test. So we're going to head over to the spreadsheet and start looking at the data. So how I did the data is exactly how I always do it, but I'm doing 7 tests now instead of 5. And this is the Dwarf Warriors charging against the hammers. The battle took on average 23 seconds, so it was over very, very quickly. And we lost a total of 136 gold in that fight, but we were losing it at 352 gold per minute. So comparing that just in on its face to Dwarf Warriors, 3 rows again, where the Dwarf Warriors just accepted the charge and didn't countercharge, we actually had the battle go from lasting 23 seconds to 35 seconds. And of course, when it's not hammers against Dwarf Warriors, or maybe it's just Chaos Warriors with great weapons or something, this will change, but we wanted to see the maximum effect. So we're already going from 23 seconds to 35 seconds just by not countercharging, and one of the reasons that is your units don't engage as thoroughly. So fewer units are fighting fewer units, so your units are dying less quickly. Now, the thing is, when you do this, you do lose more gold because you forego your charge bonus, but you can see our gold per minute loss has gone down from 352 to 283. And when we go with Dwarf Warriors with 4 rows, we see this gold per minute value slowly coming down, but we see the gold difference going up. So we're actually losing more total gold, but we're gaining more time. We're going from 35 seconds of battle time to 40 seconds, almost double what the counter charge value was. And we'll keep on going down until, we can see when we get to 10 rows, the battle is lasting 49 seconds. Our total gold loss is about 180, but our gold per minute is going steadily down. So I'm just going to get to the charts, and here's where we had those 3 battles that looked a little goofy. They took 99 seconds they generally took 66. So I just took these 3 results out because they're really outliers. What that does show is that very narrow formation lasts the longest. So we'll go take a look at the charts so that we can all look at this together. So basically the rows of Dwarf Warriors they started at 3 rows and went all the way up to 25 rows. I don't know why this chart didn't go up, but basically the battle time continuously goes up as you get a narrower formation. From basically about 35 seconds all the way to over 60 seconds. So it's getting close to double. And I would say, though, even though this chart goes up and down, it probably is linear. I put a trend line on it on a logarithmic, and it still looks very linear. So even though our data is bouncing up and down, basically, the narrower you put your weaker unit against a stronger unit, the longer the battle will take, is what that's saying. Now, the gold difference is actually kind of interesting. It's almost like a parabola. We had one real outlier here, but basically, when your units are 3 wide, and as they go wider or narrower and narrower, you lose more gold in that, until at the end, where your units are the most narrow, you start gaining, well, kind of gaining against that. So in the formation where your perfect square is where you would actually lose the most total gold, is what it looks like. It charted the gold per minute. Here's the big thing that I wanted to look at, and this is how much gold you're losing per minute. And the idea is to look at formations and how they affect weaker units versus stronger units versus weaker units. So if you have a stronger unit, you want to engage all of your units, as many of them as you can. As your weaker units, you want to engage as few as you can. And it's again probably close to a straight line function, because these got up to 15, 19, and 25 rows of a simple reduction in the gold per minute you're losing, which really is allowing you to do other things with other units as your weaker units hold stronger units in place. And you can see the DPS. So this is our Dwarf Warriors DPS. It starts high and then goes down and stays pretty steady. So we don't see a lot of change in the total damage per second, but we're staying in combat a lot longer, so we're getting a little more damage done. You do see a massive difference in the hammer's DPS, and that is really related to that charge bonus not being as applied to as many units, and it taking longer for the hammers to wrap around and engage the rest of our units. So that's kind of the most dramatic line. You see the hammer's DPS. So something that is interesting is knowing this information is our total battle time basically started at 35 seconds, and we got it all the way up to 65 seconds by narrowing our formation. So the test I did with Longbeards is I put the Longbeards in a 3-row formation, and the battles took 51 seconds. So a Dwarf Warrior in a square formation is about approximate to a Longbeard, which is 200 more gold in a stringy formation, a 3-row formation. So that's kind of interesting. And just for fun, I put the Longbeards in the same in a square formation, and they took 96 seconds just to confirm that everything is going correctly. But interestingly enough, even the Longbeards in the 3-row formation and a stronger unit, they lose more total gold and way more gold per minute at 346 gold per minute. You know, our gold per minute loss down here started at 270 and went all the way down to kind of 175-ish as we narrowed our formation. So when you have a bad matchup, it really does pay off to try and narrow up your formation and get a weaker unit in that place. Like a Longbeard and a Longbeard and a Dwarf Warrior are fundamentally the same type of unit. One is just weaker than the other. Well, you put a Longbeard, yes, they do more damage to the hammers, but they lose more gold, and that's really the big thing in a gold limited battle where you start with 12,400 gold. Is you want to lose the least amount of gold in and of each unit, and lose it at the slowest rate possible if you're going to lose it. And if you're going to win it, you want to win it at the fastest rate possible, and win as much as possible by looking at those matchups and optimizing them within the battle. Very, very hard to do unless you have outstanding field awareness and micro. But anyways, just a real interesting bit of information, I think. We are going to do testing with cavalry. We're going to do testing with ranged units, and I think artillery. Like Soulhammer and I were going over these things and talking about the different types of testing we could do, and what would be the most interesting, useful, valuable. But yeah, so this is the basic set of tests. I don't know how many tests we did. Probably, yeah, we did 15 tests of 7 units. So getting up into that about 100 battles mark. So we got pretty decent data to show that really the battle time with a weaker unit against a stronger unit, if you can, narrow it up and don't countercharge unless you have a really awesome charge bonus with that unit. It looks like it doesn't pay to countercharge. I mean, you will gain more gold back, but the battle will take a lot less time, and often with a weak unit like a dwarf warrior against a stronger unit, you just want them to hold them in place for as long as possible. And yeah, we had this interesting gold differential, which is something that we didn't really expect, and this gold per minute is interesting as well. So hopefully you found that interesting, and I would love to hear any testing that you guys have done. Again, if you like this type of video, like, subscribe, and comment. I love comments. I would like to hear, I love to hear people's thoughts about formations or different sort of things, or what they've tried and tested and what they've seen. I've found some really, really good conversation in the comment section. And if you see Soulhammer commenting, he comments under Javier, so definitely say hi. I really appreciate him helping me out. And it's so weird because we're both very technical people, and we both really love the testing and analysis part of this game, and we both play the dwarfs, not exclusively, but almost exclusively. And if you go back, you'll see our 2v2. We had me and Soulhammer played both the Dao against 2 Empire players, and it was actually quite a fun game. So I hope you found it interesting, and comments down below if you have any take on the data itself, or other testing that you would like to see, or testing that you've done yourself, or things that you've noticed yourself with formations. Definitely interested to hear it, and yeah, hope you found it interesting. I will see you soon.